Yechi. I'm begging you, save me just this once. If you don't pretend to be my girlfriend tonight, that Lee Na from the same department will definitely get me drunk and drag me to bed, robbing me of my hard-earned innocence. Den Yu's voice boomed challengingly over the phone, accompanied by such fake sobbing that I had to hold the receiver half a meter away from my ear. I frowned at the pile of financial report documents still scattered across my computer screen and replied decisively, "Not interested. My company is pressuring us for end-of-month KPIs. Handle your own problems." A guy who's mochum tiamithav meters tall is afraid of a mochum num meter tall girl getting him drunk. How embarrassing. Yechi, oh Yechi, impressed Chi. Chen Yu started pulling out his trump card. Who paid your rent deposit last month? Who bought hot pot and delivered it right to your door when you were sick? Are you really that heartless and ungrateful? All you have to do is wear a really beautiful dress tonight, take my arm and strut around at the company anniversary party, and clearly announce that you're my fiancé. After it's done, I'll treat you to Wagyu steak for an entire month. At the mention of Wagyu steak for a whole month, the speed of my typing slowed. I let out a long sigh, slammed my laptop shut with a decisive snap. Pick me up in half an hour. And remember to bring your sister's designer handbag for me to borrow to show off to everyone. If we're going to put on a show, we might as well go all out. Exactly 45 minutes later, Chen Yu pulled up in his Mazda, right in front of my apartment building. I stepped out wearing a figure-hugging red silk slip dress, my wavy hair cascading loosely down my back, my face expertly made up with a cool red lipstick. The moment Chen Yu saw me, his eyes lit up, and he whistled loudly. Damn, looking like that, I bet even Li Na wouldn't dare make a sound. Get in the car, my darling wife. I raised my hand and punched him hard in the bicep. Watch your mouth. Later at the party, I'll just be a pretty flower vase. You handle your own mess. And no touching more than necessary. Then, Yu rubbed his arm, grinning from ear to ear. Relax, we're best buddies. Who would do that to a friend? Just link arms with me later, and act all shy and lovey-dovey. Remember, we've been dating for 3 years. I'm saving up to buy a new house, and we're planning to get married next year. The anniversary party for the group's founding was held in the Grand Hall of one of the most luxurious 5-star hotels in central Beijing. The atmosphere inside was filled with the clinking of glasses, the sparkle of crystal chandeliers, and elegantly dressed guests in suits and evening gowns. The moment I linked arms with Chen Yu and stepped into the hall, I immediately felt several sharp gazes directed my way. Sure enough, before I could even pick up a glass of champagne, a girl in a white off-shoulder dress approached us proactively. She looked me up and down with an appraising gaze, the smile on her lips somewhat forced. Brother Yu, this is Li Na, she drawled, deliberately stepping closer to Chen Yu. The overpowering scent of her perfume assaulted my nose. Then, Yu immediately straightened his back. The hand that had been linking with mine shifted to wrap around my waist, pulling me close to him, his voice full of pride. Let me introduce you. This is Yechi, my girlfriend. We're planning to announce our wedding at the end of this year, so make sure you come to the reception. Li Na's face instantly stiffened, her smile vanishing completely. She bit her lip hard and glanced at me. Girlfriend? How come I've never heard brother mention you before? Where does sister Yechi work? You look quite a bit more mature than our brother Yu, don't you? Her mocking words didn't bother me in the slightest. Smiled, the standard smile of someone superior, and gently leaned my head on Chen Yu's shoulder. I work as the communications director at the company across the street. Yu here has a childish personality, so when he's out working, he can't help being impulsive sometimes. Thank you for taking care of him on my behalf all this time. If there's a chance later, I'll definitely have you treat you to a proper meal as thanks. I deliberately emphasized the words my you and thanks. The Li Na's face turned pale upon hearing that, her breathing quickened with anger, but she couldn't refute a single word. She stomped her foot, spun around, and stormed off. Then, Yu secretly gave me a thumbs up, whispering, awesome. Tonight's wagyu for the whole month is a done deal. I lifted my chin smugly, about to let go of Chen Yu to grab some food when the lights in the hall suddenly dimmed. Only a single spotlight remained, shining directly onto the stage podium. The soft background music stopped abruptly, replaced by the clear voice of the MC echoing through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and all employees of the group. Today, on the occasion of our 3rd anniversary, we are extremely honored to welcome the new regional CIO for Asia Pacific, who has just been dispatched directly from headquarters in the US to take over our branch. Please, give a big round of applause to welcome the new director, Mr. Gu Saihan. The moment the 3 words Gu Saihan rang out, the champagne glass in my hand nearly slipped and shattered on the carpet. My mind went blank and my heartbeat skipped a beat. It couldn't be. There was no way such a ridiculous coincidence could happen in this world. But when that man stepped out from the shadows, striding powerfully and authoritatively toward the microphone, the every last shred of self-deception I had clung to shattered completely. It really was him, that bastard. 3 years apart. And Gu Saihan had changed so much that I almost didn't recognize him. He was no longer the poor college student in a white-collared shirt who had to work part-time until 10 p.m. at the convenience store. The current Gu Saihan was wearing an expensive custom-tailored suit. The Patek Philippe watch on his wrist reflected blinding light. His chiseled face had sharp, cold features, and especially those ruthless, oppressive eyes that made everyone below unconsciously hold their breath. The smug satisfaction I'd felt earlier was swept away, replaced by a surge of rage that choked my throat. The image of our breakup 3 years ago was as clear as if it had happened yesterday. That day it was pouring rain. I had brought along a cheap pair of couple rings that I'd bought with my first part-time salary. I ran through the rain to his rundown rental room to celebrate our 2nd anniversary. What greeted me was a suitcase already packed and ready. Gu Saihan stood there, looking at me with the coldest eyes I'd ever seen, and uttered words that tore my heart to pieces. Yechi, let me go. I don't want to spend my whole life eating instant noodles in this shabby little room. If I cling to you, when will I ever make something of myself? I'm too poor, I can't give you happiness, and you can't help with my future either. Let's break up. Then no matter how much I cried and begged, asking what had happened, he resolutely pushed my hand away. He got into a luxury car waiting at the entrance of the alley, leaving me standing alone crying in the rain like a pathetic fool. And now, here we were. That terrible man who had once scorned me for being poor and lowly had reappeared before me as the new CIO of a major corporation, standing at the pinnacle of power, basking in dazzling glory. Then, you knew nothing about this past of mine. Because when Gu Saihan and I were dating, Chen Yu had been studying abroad. He enthusiastically patted my shoulder, pointing toward the stage. See how cool my new boss is. I heard he's a demon from the US side, swallowing up rival companies without batting an eye. Our company is definitely in for some major changes now. I bit my lower lip until it bled, struggling to suppress the urge to rush onto the stage and slap that bastard right across the face. I wanted to turn and flee from this suffocating space immediately. But Chen Yu had his arm wrapped tightly around my waist to continue the act in front of his colleagues, leaving me unable to move. Stage. Gu Saihan finished his short, cold yet domineering speech. He stepped down from the platform, refusing the glass of wine from his assistant. Everyone automatically made way for him. No one dared approach to strike up a conversation. Then, his footsteps suddenly halted. Amid the hundreds of people in the banquet hall, Gu Saihan's gaze swept through the crowd and landed precisely on me. Our eyes met. My heart jolted, and my hand unconsciously clutched the hem of Chen Yu's jacket. I saw his sharp brows furrow tightly. Then his gaze slowly slid downward, stopping right at the spot where Chen Yu's hand was intimately wrapped around my waist. In an instant, the entire aura of the new CIO shifted. His eyes turned so icy that the temperature around us seemed to drop several degrees. It wasn't the indifferent detachment of a stranger, but a fury so intense it was barely restrained. The hand hanging loosely at his side clenched into a fist, veins bulging prominently. That bastard, what the hell is he jealous about? Saihan's eyes locked onto me, fierce and cold like a predator that had just spotted its prey. The hand, gripping Chen Yu's jacket, broke out in a cold sweat. I wanted to turn my face away, pretend we'd never met, wanted to run from this stifling hall, right away. But my feet felt as if weighed down by tons of lead, nailed to the carpet. Saihan curled his lips in a slight smirk, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He took a leisurely step down from the stage, parting the crowd that bowed and scraped around him, and walked straight toward our table. He moved very slowly, his demeanor calm and composed, yet carrying an overwhelming pressure. Each step of his shoes, clicking against the marble floor, echoed with a steady click. The crowd around automatically parted to either side, making way. The atmosphere in the vast banquet hall suddenly grew deathly silent and oppressive. I could hear the anxious, shallow breathing of the colleagues standing nearby. Look, the big boss is heading toward our table. Oh my God. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to make a good impression. Then, Yu elbowed me hard in the side. His voice was so excited it hissed through his teeth. He had no idea about the murderous aura radiating from the man approaching. Hurriedly releasing my waist, he smoothed down his suit jacket with both hands, preparing his most professional, standard smile. Saihan stopped less than half a meter away from us, close enough that I could smell the cold, woody cedar scent of his cologne emanating from him. This unfamiliar, the aggressive fragrance had completely replaced the cheap mint soap scent from 3 years ago that I used to know so well. I could recognize it with my eyes closed. The invisible pressure from his muntem tamitiam centimeter height bore down on me, cutting off all the air around us and making me feel extremely suffocated. Hello, Boss, Chen Yu said enthusiastically, bowing deeply and extending both hands forward in obvious flattery. I'm Chen Yu, Deputy Director of the Marketing Department. It's a great honor to welcome you as the leader of our branch. This speech, just now, was truly inspiring. We in the Marketing Department have already outlined some plans. Saihan's indifferent gaze swept over Chen Yu's outstretched hands, showing not the slightest intention of shaking them. He simply stood there with his arms crossed, leaving my best friend awkwardly frozen in mid-air, with extreme embarrassment. Then, those razor-sharp eyes slowly shifted, pinning straight onto my face, scrutinizing every meticulously applied detail of my makeup. The Deputy Marketing Director Chen Yu. His deep, slightly husky voice rang out, enunciating each word, as if chewing the name to pieces in his mouth. I didn't know the company's hiring standards had become so lax lately, as to include allowing employees to bring their family members to high-security internal events like this. And this young lady is. Even though he was being ignored so blatantly in front of so many people, Chen Yu still maintained a gracious demeanor. He quickly withdrew his hands and naturally draped an arm around my shoulder, pulling me close to his chest. Then, Yu proudly introduced, his voice loud enough for Lai Na standing far away to hear as well. So boss, you've misunderstood. She's not an outsider. This is Yechi, my girlfriend. She came with me today to get acquainted with my colleagues. Please allow me to show off a little. We've been together for 3 years now. Our relationship is very stable. We've been through so many ups and downs to get here. Next year, we're planning to buy a house in the city center and officially get married. At that time, I hope you can spare some of your precious time to come celebrate and have a toast with us as husband and wife. The moment the words 3 years and wedding left Chen Yu's mouth, I swear I saw the veins on Gu Saihan's temple throbbing violently. The atmosphere around us suddenly froze solid, his gaze shifted from cold detachment to a mocking sneer, the corner of his lips curling into a cruel, chilling smile. 3 years. Gu Saihan repeated the number. His eyes blazed as they fixed on me, as if wanting to strip away every layer of my disguise in front of the crowd. What a coincidence. 3 years ago, if we calculate the timing carefully, Miss Su had just ended her previous relationship. 4. The tears even dried. She jumped straight into Mr. Chen's arms. It seems true love really knows how to pick the perfect moment to appear, not wasting even a single second. His words, laced with heavy sarcasm and biting mockery, made the senior executives standing nearby exchange furtive glances and start whispering among themselves. Then, Yu, however, remained clueless like an idiot, completely missing the underlying meaning in the boss's words. He even thought the boss was showing interest in his personal life. He scratched his head, laughing awkwardly, and delivered a fatal blow. Yes, exactly. It's fate ordained by heaven. Me Yechi here was previously unlucky enough to run into a terrible man. I heard that guy was dirt poor and full of false pride. For the sake of his own future, he abandoned her ruthlessly, leaving her crying miserably in the rain. But thankfully, that scumbag left, which gave me the chance to bring this virtuous wife home. Thinking back, I should even thank that bastard. I squeezed my eyes shut tightly, cursing furiously in my heart. Then, Yuo Chen Yu, do you have any idea that the dirt poor bastard you're talking about is standing right in front of you? Not only are you digging your own grave, but you're dragging me down with you to die together. Sure enough, the smile on Gu Saihan's lips vanished completely, replaced by a dark cloud shrouding his entire face. The atmosphere grew so tense that even a falling hair could have made a loud noise. He slowly turned to his assistant, who was standing timidly trembling behind him, and lightly tapped his slender finger on the glass table beside him. Bring me 2 bottles of the strongest whiskey from the bar right now. The assistant jumped in fright and hurriedly ran off, returning in less than a minute with 2 bottles of extremely high-proof Western liquor. Without a word, Gu Saihan personally picked up a bottle and poured it to the brim into 3 large crystal glasses, meant for water, not alcohol. The amber liquid overflowed the rims. The pungent, spicy aroma shot straight up noses, making those nearby frown. I hear the employees in the marketing department have quite impressive alcohol tolerances. You've never known fear on the negotiation table. Gu Saihan picked up 1 glass, tilted his chin, and pushed the other 2 overflowing glasses toward Chen Yu. Day is a joyous day, celebrating the group's founding. And I've coincidentally heard that Deputy Director Chen is about to welcome a virtuous wife. After 3 years of dating. Drink these 2 glasses dry, as my congratulations on behalf of the entire board for your everlasting happiness and a harmonious union. Then, Yu's face immediately changed from rosy to deathly pale. A glass poured to the brim, like this, was equivalent to nearly half a bottle of strong liquor. The drinking 2 full glasses in a row without any ice would knock out even someone with a 1,000-glass tolerance, possibly sending them straight to the hospital for stomach pumping. Boss, about this. Chen Yu stammered, cold sweat the size of beans starting to bead on his forehead. My tolerance is indeed a bit low. Normally when entertaining clients, I can manage a few small glasses, but drinking 2 full ones like this at once, I'm afraid it might be too much. Gu Saihan sharply cut him off, his voice steady without any fluctuation, yet carrying an overwhelming pressure that bore down directly on Chen Yu. Or does Mr. Chen feel that the deep 3-year bond between you 2 isn't worth accepting this congratulatory toast? A deputy marketing director, daring to refuse a direct drink invitation from the CIO. I'm starting to doubt your communication skills and work attitude. This was no longer just forcing a drink. This was a blatant threat. If Chen Yu didn't drink these 2 lethal glasses today, it meant his years of hard work and career at the group would come to an end, and he might have to pack his bags and leave tomorrow. Chen Yu gritted his teeth, his face filled with resignation as he stepped forward, his trembling hand reaching for the glass. Yes, since the boss has shown such kindness, I will drink it. Enough. I couldn't hold back for another second. The long-suppressed patience and past trauma snapped like an overstretched string. I quickly stepped forward, using my body to block between Chen Yu and Gu Saihan. My hand reached out and decisively grabbed one of the whiskey glasses on the table. I lifted my head to meet the cold, ruthless gaze of that terrible man from years ago. Director Gu, his stomach hasn't been in good condition lately. The doctor advised him against strong alcohol. Spoke firmly, trying to maintain the last bit of calm and dignity I had left. If you truly have sincere intentions to congratulate us as his fiancée, I will drink this glass on his behalf. After all, our matters don't require outsiders to concern themselves with, or judge. With that, without giving Gu Sihan a chance to react, I resolutely brought the glass to my lips, about to close my eyes and down it in one go. But the instant the burning liquid touched my tongue, a force extremely powerful and ruthless slammed into the back of my hand. Gu Sihan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot as he violently swatted my arm away. The crystal glass flew far, smashing hard against the marble floor and shattering into 1,000 tiny pieces. The ear-piercing sound of shattering echoed, tearing through the vast banquet hall and making everyone around jump in shock, instinctively retreating backward. Thicker, splashed everywhere, soaking the hem of my red evening gown. Then, Yu cried out in alarm, about to rush over to support me and check if my hand was injured. But Gu Sihan's eyes, sharp as an eagle's, immediately pinned him in place, freezing him where he stood. Ignoring the fearful looks from everyone, Gu Sihan took half a step forward. The distance between us shrank until there wasn't even a sliver of space left. He leaned down slightly, his tall frame shielding me from the crowd's view, bringing his lips close to my ear. His hot breath, carrying that familiar yet strange cold sandalwood scent, brushed against my skin. But every word he uttered was as sharp as the glass shards on the floor, filled with extreme rage and a wild jealousy that burned away all reason. Deep affection. So deep that you're willing to block the drink for each other. He gritted his teeth, his voice low but each word exploding like thunder in my ear, audible only to me. After that ruthless swat and the threatening whisper from Gu Sihan, the atmosphere in the banquet hall nearly froze solid. He didn't say another word, coldly, pulling a handkerchief from his suit pocket and slowly wiping each finger that had touched me as if he'd just touched something filthy and disgusting. Then, tossing the handkerchief straight to the floor, Gu Sihan turned on his heel and left, followed by a group of senior executives who bowed and trailed after him, the leaving Chen Yu and me standing there alone amid the whispering and gossiping gazes of hundreds of colleagues. Then, Yu had no idea what had just happened. He thought the CIO had gotten angry because an employee dared to defy the forced drinking order. He was so terrified that for the rest of the party, he could only sit huddled in a corner, repeatedly muttering to me whether he should prepare a resignation letter for tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. My mind was in chaos with thousands of questions. When had Gu Sihan returned to the country? And what exactly was the meaning behind his uncontrollable rage earlier? A man who had abandoned me because he looked down on my poverty should now, standing at the pinnacle of power, look at me with pity or contempt. So, why did his eyes burn with jealousy, as if he'd caught his wife cheating? I tossed and turned until the sky began to lighten, before finally dozing off for a bit. But I'd barely been asleep for less than 2 hours when a shrill phone ring jolted me awake. I reached for the phone on the bedside table. Soldier Farmy PM. The screen displaying Chen Yu's name. Hello. I answered wearily, my voice hoarse. Yechi, save me, I'm done for, Yechi. Chen Yu's panicked scream, full of utter despair, came from the other end, snapping me wide awake. All drowsiness vanished without a trace. Are you crazy? It's only Soldier 30 in the morning, what are you yelling about? Did Lina follow you home? I frowned as I sat up. Lina my ass. I'd rather be eaten alive by Lina than deal with this damn email. Chen Yu's voice sounded like he was about to cry. The HR department just sent an urgent email at Soldier NNM. It's a personnel transfer decision personally approved and signed by the new CIO Gu Sihan last night. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. An intense sense of unease surged up. I gripped the phone tightly. What decision? Tell me clearly. I've been promoted to Director of Market Development for the Africa region. Chen Yu wailed miserably. The branch is located in a remote mining area in the Republic of Congo. The email clearly states I must go there for a 2-year assignment to develop the potential market. Potential my ass. That godforsaken place doesn't even have Wi-Fi, and the mosquitoes are as big as fists. Sending a marketing guy to a desolate mining area to sell. What communication strategies to monkeys? This is clearly in order to exile me to the border. The blood in my veins seemed to freeze solid. Gusihan, he had really made his move. You don't have to go, do you? At worst, just resign and find another company. With your abilities, there are plenty of places that would roll out the red carpet for you. I tried to keep my voice calm to comfort him. But the hand holding the phone had started trembling. Sign. You think I haven't thought of that? Chen Yu hissed in utter regret. 6. The company forced us to sign an addendum to the contract, committing to long-term employment in exchange for preferential shares. There's a vicious clause that says if a managerial-level employee refuses a reasonable transfer order from headquarters or unilaterally terminates the contract, they must compensate 10 times the value of the shares granted. I just calculated it. If I resign now, I'd have to pay the company nearly 5 million yuan. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Even selling my organs wouldn't be enough. On the other end, Chen Yu was truly breaking down. He sobbed about how his parents back home were looking forward to him, saving money to buy a house by the end of the year. And now he was suddenly saddled with a massive debt, or had to pack his suitcase and head to Africa to mine for 2 years. Every word, from Chen Yu, stabbed like knives into my conscience. Guilt surged until I could barely breathe. My best friend, the one who had always protected and helped me unconditionally, was now bearing the brunt of this unreasonable wrath from above. And the source of that wrath was none other than me. That terrible man could have targeted me directly if he wanted. But no, Gusihan chose the most vicious way. He knew my weakness was my sense of loyalty and gratitude. Instead of choking me directly, he was trampling on my closest friend, using Chen Yu's future to force me to my knees in surrender. You calm down, I took a deep breath, my voice firming. The fear from earlier was completely burned away by the flames of anger. You're not going to Africa and you're not paying a single cent, just stay home and sleep well. I'll handle this. You'll handle it. You're the communications director at the rival company, not mine. How can you intervene in my new CIO's decision? Yechi. Or did I offend the boss with my attitude yesterday? Said, I'll handle it, so I'll handle it. Don't ask too many questions. I hung up abruptly, tossing the phone aside. I sprang out of bed and rushed straight into the bathroom. 15 minutes later, I stepped out of the house with a completely different appearance, no longer the shy girl from last night. I had on a sharp black business suit, 10-centimeter stiletto heels, my hair pulled into a neat high bun, and bold deep red lipstick full of fighting spirit on my lips. I hailed a taxi and headed straight to the group's headquarters. The towering glass and steel building pierced the sky proudly in the heart of the bustling business district. Standing in the lobby and looking up at the highest floor, where the new CIO's office was said to be, I felt an almost suffocating distance. The gap between the Gusihan of 3 years ago and the one now was like 2 different worlds. But even if he had turned into the king of hell himself, today I was going to pry his mouth open and demand justice. I strode into the lobby, confidently passing through security and heading straight to the reception desk. Hello. I want to see Director Gusen. I tapped my knuckles on the marble counter, my voice ice cold. The receptionist looked up, her professional smile perfectly in place. Hello, ma'am. May I ask if you have an appointment with Director Gu? His schedule is currently fully booked through next week. I don't have an appointment. I cut her off, but she still picked up the phone and called the secretary's office to report that Yechi a relative of Deputy Director Chen Yu, was here to see him. If he refused to meet me, I would bring a loudspeaker right into the lobby of this building and tell every single employee about the full background of your brilliant new CIO. The receptionist's eyes flew wide, her professional smile freezing solid on her face. She had clearly never encountered anyone bold enough to cause a scene right here in the headquarters of this trillion-dollar corporation. Her hand shot for the internal phone, while the other hovered over the security button. At that exact moment, the doors of the VIP executive elevator slid open. The young man in gold-rimmed glasses was the same capable assistant who had fetched the 2 bottles of strong whiskey the night before on Gu Saihan's orders. He strode straight to the reception desk and gave me a slight, perfectly measured bow. His tone was polite, yet carried a subtle undercurrent of calculation. The director Gu instructed that if Miss Su arrives, there is no need to announce her. Please escort her directly to the 58th floor, he is waiting for her. Stood frozen for 2 full seconds. He's waiting for me. He had calculated every single step, with terrifying precision. The urgent email sent at 6 in the morning, the certainty that Chen Yu would call me in panic, and the absolute confidence that I would storm straight here in a rage to settle the score. Every footstep I had taken had landed exactly inside the trap Gu Saihan had laid out in advance. Lead the way, I said, lifting my chin and forcing down the chill crawling up my spine. I followed the assistant into the VIP elevator with firm strides. The elevator rose smoothly and silently to the top of the building. When the doors opened, a hushed corridor lined with thick, plush wool carpet stretched before me. The entire 58th floor was reserved exclusively for the CIO's office suite. The silence was so complete I could hear my own stiletto heels sinking into the carpet. The deeper I walked, the more a familiar cold, woody fragrance filled the air, an oppressive scent that wrapped around my throat like an invisible noose, tightening slowly. The assistant stopped before a pair of massive, intricately carved wooden doors, pushed one open with a respectful gesture, and stepped back. I drew in a deep breath, tightened my grip on my handbag strap, and strode inside. The instant my heel crossed the threshold, the heavy wooden door behind me slammed shut with a dull thud. The electronic lock clicked into place with a cold, final snap. Spun around and yanked the handle, but it was already locked from the outside. Unease surged through me like ice water. The office was vast, floor-to-ceiling glass walls offering a sweeping view of the entire city. Sunlight poured in brilliantly. Yet it could not dispel the suffocating chill inside. In the center stood a sleek black mahogany desk, and behind it, a high-backed leather executive chair turned away from me, facing the enormous window. At the sound of the lock, the man in the chair slowly spun it around with one foot. Gu Saihan sat, with one long leg crossed over the other, his tall frame half hidden in the black leather. He had shed his suit jacket and wore only a black dress shirt, with the top 2 buttons undone, sleeves rolled up, revealing powerful forearms. His deep icy gaze cold as a frozen winter lake pinned me in place. The corner of his perfectly sculpted mouth curved into a smile brimming with triumph and lethal danger. He stared straight at me, his low, husky voice cutting through the dead silence and shattering every last layer of my defenses in a single sentence. So, you finally couldn't stay away and came looking for me after all. His words dripped with mockery and gloating satisfaction, striking me like a poisoned arrow. I stopped 3 steps from his desk, fighting to steady the wild pounding of my heart. Detract that insane personnel transfer order right now, I demanded, voice sharp and unyielding as I cut straight to the point. Our issues are personal. You're the new regional CIO, yet you're abusing company power for private revenge and dragging an innocent person into it. Don't you think your methods are beneath contempt? Gu Saihan showed no sign of anger at my accusation. Instead, he leaned back leisurely in his chair, lacing his fingers together on the desk. The corner of his mouth lifted into an extremely dangerous smile. Beneath contempt. Private revenge. He raised an eyebrow, his indifferent gaze sliding over my taut face. Yechi, you really do think far too highly of yourself. The reassigning a deputy marketing director to the Africa region to develop new resource markets is a strategic move that falls squarely within the group's long-term vision. Chen Yu is an outstanding employee. I'm personally giving him this opportunity for advancement. Instead of thanking me on his behalf, you come storming in here to make a scene. Fake. Honeyed words, I snarled through gritted teeth, stepped forward, and slammed both palms down on his gleaming mahogany desk. Developing resource mines in Africa. You sent a communications specialist there to do what? Chat with wild animals. Zhu Saihan, I know exactly what kind of man you are. Everything you do has one final purpose: to force me to come crawling here and beg you. Well, here I am. If you want to trample me, humiliate me, do it to my face. Leave Chen Yu out of this. The atmosphere in the office shifted instantly. The mocking smile on Gu Saihan's lips vanished. The air, already oppressive, grew thick and bone-chilling. Simply because I had mentioned Chen Yu's name over and over, fiercely defending him. I had apparently stepped on a landmine, buried deep inside this man. Zhu Saihan shot to his feet. The leather chair skidded backward across the thick carpet from the force. He planted both hands on the desk and leaned forward, until our faces were mere centimeters apart. You want to take the punishment for him. His eyes burned red, veins of insane jealousy screaming to break free. Yechi, who do you think you are? What right do you have to stand here and bargain with me for another man? Instinct screamed for survival. I took a step back, trying to escape that devouring gaze. But, before I could move, Gu Saihan had already rounded the massive desk in 2 long strides. I retreated 1 step, he advanced 2, until my back slammed hard against the cold floor, to ceiling-reinforced glass. Gape. Behind me was a 58-story drop. In front of me stood Gu Saihan, radiating murderous intent. He raised one arm and braced it against the glass, right beside my ear, caging me completely within the solid wall of his chest. That cold woody cedar scent engulfed every one of my senses, cutting off all air. I lifted my hands to push against his chest, but my wrist was instantly seized by a large, scorching palm and slammed above my head. Zhu Saihan. Let go, I struggled in panic. His other hand shot out. Long, powerful fingers gripped my chin, forcing my face up to meet the blazing fire in his eyes. His grip was strong enough to hurt without breaking bone, so I would feel every ounce of his towering rage. Fast. In front of everyone, you called him your sweet husband, and even stepped forward to block the drink for him. 3 years of deep affection between you two is truly so grand it blinds me. His voice was hoarse, each word forced through clenched teeth, laced with biting cruelty and bottomless resentment. 2. 3 years ago, you were crying and begging me not to leave. You swore you'd love only me for the rest of your life. So how is it that before your tears even dried, you were already lying comfortably in another man's arms? My eyes flew open wide. My chest heaved violently as the bitterness I had suppressed for 3 long years finally exploded. Ignoring the pain in my jaw, I screamed straight into his face. Yes, I fell in love with someone else, so what? You're the one who threw me away. You looked down on me for being poor, for being a burden holding you back. Now that you're standing at the very top, you can have any woman you want. Why did you have to come back and tear apart my peaceful life? Gu Saihan, you are a complete bastard. My words poured gasoline on the wildfire of jealousy already raging inside him. Flicker of pain flashed through Gu Saihan's eyes, gone in an instant, swallowed by a savage possessiveness. He lowered his head until the tips of our noses nearly brushed. His scorching breath burned against my trembling lips. I am a bastard, he ground out each word, the low rumble slamming into my eardrums. But listen carefully, Yechi. Even if I am the biggest bastard in the world, you will never escape me. If you dare love another man, I will make his life a living hell. With that, he suddenly released my chin and wrist. I staggered back, clutching my chest and gasping for air, as though I had just been pulled from the bottom of the ocean. Zhu Saihan turned and walked back to his desk. He pulled a neatly clipped document folder from the drawer and tossed it onto the surface with a crisp slap. I'm a businessman, and businessmen prefer to speak with black and white on paper. Z undid one more button at his collar, his demeanor returning to the cold, commanding presence of a CIO. You want to keep your precious boyfriend in Beijing. You want him spared from that 5 million yuan debt. Fine, sign this contract. I approached warily, picked up the folder and opened it. The bold headline on the first page hit me like a slap. Full-time, personal assistant contract. I flipped through the pages, my expression growing darker with every line. 3-month term. Available Hemifortune Bay at the director's request. Responsible for scheduling, meals, and all personal arrangements for the director. Are you insane? I snapped my head up. I'm the communications director at another company. You want me to quit and come here to be your servant? You can refuse, of course. Zhu Saihan folded his arms across his chest, looking down at me like prey already caught in his net. The earliest flight this afternoon will take your boyfriend straight into the African jungle. I'll give you 1 minute to decide. 5 million yuan for Chen Yu's freedom, or 3 months as mine. Choose. Z, hand holding the contract, shook violently. Gu Sihan had planned everything too perfectly. Z knew I would never let my own pride destroy Chen Yu's future and livelihood. This contract had been prepared long ago. All that remained was for me to walk into the trap. The seconds ticked by. The Patek Philippe on his wrist seemed to be counting down the verdict on my life. I bit my lower lip until the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. Fury, helplessness, and bitter resentment blurred my vision. I snatched the luxurious fountain pen from the desk, uncapped it with such force, I nearly snapped the nib, and signed my name Su Yechi on the designated line with the neatest, most defiant strokes I could manage. The moment the signature was complete, I hurled the pen onto the desk. Cancel Chen Yu's transfer order immediately, I demanded coldly. Zhu Sihan did not reply. He slowly picked up the contract, his long fingers tracing my signature, as though savoring a priceless masterpiece. The insane jealousy and cruelty from moments earlier vanished without a trace, replaced by a triumphant, almost tender smile that sent chills down my spine. He stepped closer. I instinctively moved to retreat, but he was faster. His hand reached out, warm fingertips gently brushed my cheek, wiping away a single tear I hadn't realized had fallen. Good girl, Gu Sihan whispered, his voice so bewitching it raised goosebumps across my skin. Go pack your things. Starting tomorrow you move into my place. At exactly 8 o'clock the next morning, I stood in front of the penthouse door on the top floor of Beijing's most luxurious residential complex, dragging a small suitcase behind me. Staring at the digital keypad, I took a deep breath, gritted my teeth, and punched in the 6-digit code Gu Sihan had sent by text. The door opened to reveal a vast apartment decorated in cold black and white tones. Gu Sihan had already left for the office. On the dining table in the open kitchen lay a single note in his familiar, sharp handwriting. Your room is on the left. Be at the company by 10. If you're 1 minute late, Chen Yu automatically loses a month's salary. I crushed the note between my teeth and threw it into the trash. To protect Chen Yu's future, I had taken an unpaid 3-month leave from my own communications company. I was now officially Gu Sihan's personal assistant and his prisoner. My days as his assistant began in the most absurd way imaginable. Zhu Sihan assigned me 0 tasks related to my actual profession. My desk was placed inside his enormous office, less than 3 meters from his own. My daily duties consisted of utterly trivial, humiliating chores. Brewing him black coffee without sugar 3 times a day, sorting dozens of luxury accessories by color, standing beside his desk, to hand him pens for signing documents, and even sitting silently on the sofa simply, so he could look up and see me whenever he wanted. I knew perfectly well Gu Sihan was deliberately tormenting me. He wanted to trample my pride this way, to constantly remind me that he now held absolute power while I was nothing more than someone forced to bow and obey. Every time anger flared, and I looked up ready to rebel, I would accidentally meet his deep, unfathomable gaze fixed on me. There was no gloating victory in those eyes, only a complicated, suppressed emotion so intense, I didn't dare hold his stare for long. On the 5th day of the contract, Gu Saihan ordered me to accompany him to an important evening dinner to entertain partners from the south. The banquet was held in a VIP room at a royal-style restaurant. The biggest partner that night was Director Wang, a middle-aged, pot-bellied, balding man infamous for his womanizing ways in the business world. The moment he stepped into the room, his greasy gaze locked onto me, sliding from my face down to my waist cinched tight in the black evening gown. Director Gu is truly young and talented. Even the assistant you brought along is such a rare beauty. Director Wang laughed decorously, rising unsteadily with a glass of Mao Tai filled to the brim. He staggered toward me. Scum, beautiful assistant. Director Gu here has been working hard on business tonight. Have a drink with me on his behalf, consider it a token of respect for me. Director Wang. These he spoke, his crude hand reached out to grab my wrist and force the drink on me. Nausea surged up my throat. I stepped back half a pace to avoid his disgusting touch. But remembering the multi-million yuan contract still sitting on the table, I swallowed my revulsion and reached out to accept the glass. After all, part of an assistant's job was to take the bullets for her boss at banquets. The instant my fingers were about to touch the rim, a large, powerful hand shot out from behind me, seized my wrist, and yanked me backward, stumbled, and collided with a familiar, solid chest. The cold, woody cedar scent instantly enveloped me like an impenetrable shield of safety. Gu Saihan stood squarely in front of me, his face so icy it could have frozen the entire liquor-scented VIP room. He didn't spare Director Wang a single glance. With a cold flick of his hand, he sent the glass of Mao Tai flying. Crash. The glass shattered on the floor, liquor splashing across Director Wang's polished leather shoes. The noisy laughter in the room died instantly. Everyone froze, stunned that the usually calm and rational new CIO would suddenly flip out like this. Director Gu, what are you doing? Director Wang's face changed color. He snarled in fury, I was only offering your assistant a drink, you won't even give me that much face. Gu Saihan's lips curled, his deep voice rang out in the sudden silence, carrying an undeniable kingly pressure. I won't even let my own assistant drink a single drop of alcohol. What right do you have to touch her? Her hands are for holding pens and writing reports, not for serving drinks to filthy bastards like you. You want to cancel the contract. Director Wang jabbed a finger at Gu Saihan's face, breathing hard. Gu Saihan coldly pulled out a handkerchief and wiped each finger that had touched me as though cleaning off filth. His cruel gaze swept over the fat man. With morals like yours, your company is not qualified to be our group's partner. And tomorrow I will have someone review our entire Southern supply network. If you want to keep your director's seat, then from now on, the moment you see anyone from Gu Saihan's side, you had better stay 3 meters away. Without waiting for a reply, Gu Saihan spun around, his large hand gripping my wrist tightly, as he strode out of the suffocating room. All the way from the restaurant to the parking garage, Gu Saihan didn't say a word. His grip on my wrist was so tight it left red marks, yet I felt no pain. My heart hammered wildly. The image of him shielding me, of him ruthlessly tossing aside a multi-million yuan contract for my sake, kept replaying in my mind. The car sped along Beijing's brightly lit highway. The silence inside the vehicle was terrifying. I had suffered from carsickness since childhood, and after a few sips of pre-dinner wine earlier, dizziness and nausea began to hit hard. I slumped against the window, face deathly pale, stomach twisting in knots. The Maybach suddenly braked and pulled sharply onto the shoulder. Before I could react, Gu Saihan had unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned across to my side. His hand trembled slightly as he lifted my chin, checking my complexion. The cold, oppressive look from earlier had completely vanished, replaced by unmistakable panic and concern. Feeling sick. Is your stomach hurting again? His voice dropped low, carrying a gentleness I hadn't heard in 3 years. I nodded weakly. Gu Sihan immediately instructed the driver to maintain the smoothest possible speed, no sudden braking, and head straight back to the penthouse. The moment we stepped inside, I staggered and collapsed onto the living room sofa. Exhausted, I squeezed my eyes shut. In my half-conscious haze, I heard Gu Sihan's hurried footsteps moving around the kitchen, the clink of glass. A moment later, a warm glass was gently pressed to my cheek. Drink this first. It'll help with the nausea before you sleep. I cracked my eyes open and took the glass from him. It was warm honey water. I brought it to my lips and sipped. The temperature was perfect, neither scalding nor cold, and the honey-to-water ratio was exactly right. So familiar it made my heart ache. My eyes suddenly burned with unshed tears. This habit was from 3 years ago. Every time I came back from a club party feeling carsick, no matter how exhausted he was from assignments, Gu Sihan would rush to make me a glass of honey water. He would always test the temperature on the back of his hand first, making sure it was precisely 40 degrees before handing it to me. 3 years had passed. He had become a man who could summon wind and rain in the business world, surrounded by countless servants. This instinctive habit of taking care of me had remained, down to the smallest detail. Does he hate me, or has he never really forgotten me? My mind buzzed, the carsickness making it impossible to think further. I set the empty glass down, rested my head on the sofa pillow, and slipped into deep sleep without realizing it. I don't know how much time passed before I woke, throat parched with thirst. The room was dark, lit only by a soft golden nightlight in the corner. I realized I had been carried to bed, a warm goose-down blanket tucked carefully across my chest. I shifted to sit up and get water when I suddenly noticed my right hand was being held in a warm grip. I looked down. Gu Sihan had not gone to his own room. The proud, powerful new CIO was sitting on the floor beside my bed, head pillowed on the edge, fast asleep. Zia's expensive suit was rumpled, his usually perfectly styled hair falling messily across his forehead, making him look exhausted and worn. His large hands still cradled mine, pressing it against his cheek as if terrified that loosening his hold for even a second would make me vanish. I held my breath, nose stinging. I tried to gently pull my hand away so as not to wake him. But, at the slightest movement, Gu Sihan's brows knitted tightly. He didn't wake, yet his grip tightened further. And then in the quiet darkness of the night, I heard the painful, choked murmur slip from the lips of the man who always appeared so cruel and cold. Chi, don't go, please, don't leave me for him. The next morning, sunlight streaming through the curtains woke me. The room was empty. Sitting dazed on the soft bed, I looked down at my right hand. The warmth from his tight grip last night still lingered on my skin, so real my heartbeat stuttered. The image of Gu Sihan's tall frame slumped beside the bed, and those anguished words kept replaying in my mind like a slow-motion film. I buried my face in my hands, trying to push away the tangled mess in my heart. Maybe he drank too much last night and mistook me for someone else. Or perhaps it was simply a moment of weakness from a lonely man at the top of the world. I reminded myself that the current Gu Sihan was a cold-blooded demon. He was the one who had used Chen Yu's future to threaten me. He was no longer the boy in the white-collared shirt who once ran through the rain to buy me porridge 3 years ago. At the office, Gu Sihan once again wore his icy mask. Not a trace of last night's gentleness or vulnerability remained. The moment he entered the office, he tossed me a set of keys. I have a 3-hour board meeting downstairs this morning. Buttoning his cuffs, he issued orders in a dry, emotionless tone. Headquarters in the U.S. just sent over 3 boxes of my personal documents. Open the built-in filing cabinet behind the desk, sort and organize everything neatly. Remember, do not lose a single page. That he strode out with his assistant, leaving me alone in the quiet space, still carrying the faint trace of that familiar cold fragrance. Sighed, and began my trivial assistant duties. 3 large cartons were packed with thick files, mostly merger and acquisition contracts, English financial reports, and Gu Saihan's academic certificates from his 3 years abroad. By noon my back ached from sorting. As I lifted the final stack of documents from the bottom of the third box onto the shelf, my hand brushed against something hard and metallic. It was a small, gray metal box. The paint on its edges was chipped, looking old, and completely out of place among the multi-million-dollar contracts. The box had a cheap combination lock, but the dials had not been fully turned. One light flick, and the latch popped open. Curiosity got the better of me. I lifted the lid, intending only to see what kind of document it held so I could file it correctly. The instant I saw the first item resting neatly on the old velvet lining, my entire body went rigid as if struck by high-voltage electricity. It was a silver ring. More precisely, it was the men's ring from the cheap couple set I had bought with my very first part-time salary at the cafe, less than 200 yuan total, to give him on our second anniversary. The women's ring had been thrown by me into the raging river on that stormy breakup night. This men's ring should have been left behind in that rundown rental room long ago. Yet its surface shone without a trace of tarnish, proof that its owner had taken it out and polished it with meticulous care over the years. My heart began to pound violently. A foreboding feeling rose and clogged my throat. My trembling hands continued to lift the items hidden beneath the ring. The second was a savings passbook in Gu Saihan's name. I opened it to page after page of transactions showing continuous withdrawals starting 3 years ago. Every last cent he had earned from part-time jobs, handing out flyers, and completing assignments had been drained and sent somewhere. The third item was a stack of hospital documents from Beijing Central Hospital, stamped in bright red, along with dozens of menacing black-printed debt notices. I pulled out the medical records. Patient Chen Shu, biological mother of Gu Saihan, diagnosis: stage renal failure with heart complications, immediate hemodialysis and kidney transplant required. Estimated cost, millions of yuan. The date on the diagnosis was exactly 1 week before Gu Saihan had brutally broken up with me. My vision blurred. I frantically flipped through the debt notices underneath. Black market loan agreements. Asset seizure notices after his father's small company went bankrupt, leaving behind a mountain of debt that crushed the mother and son. My mind roared with explosions. The scattered fragments of the past clicked together, forming a cruel picture of the truth I could barely believe. At the very bottom of the box lay the final document, a voluntary clinical trial contract from a private medical research institute in the US. The enormous compensation fee was enough to cover his mother's entire transplant cost. The bold red-printed side effects warned of severe gastric mucosa erosion and widespread stomach bleeding that could directly threaten his life. At the bottom, Gu Saihan's signature was bold and decisive. The papers slipped from my fingers and scattered across the carpet. My legs gave out completely. I collapsed onto the floor. I clutched my chest as 1,000 knives seemed to rip through it. He didn't want to spend his whole life eating instant noodles in that rundown rental room. If I cling to you, when will I ever make something of myself? Let's break up. Those cruel words from that stormy night echoed again. But this time they carried none of the scorn or gold-digging accusation I had resented for 3 long years. They were a self-inflicted wound. Gu Saihan, stabbing his own heart to sever every hope I had and push me out of the darkest pit of his life. That year, his family had gone bankrupt, his mother lay dying from a terminal illness, and ruthless debt collectors hounded them day and night. A 22-year-old college student with nothing but empty hands had faced a towering wall of despair. He had wrapped himself in the armor of a heartless bastard, so I would hate him to the bone anything, rather than drag the girl he loved most into that muddy swamp, forcing her to shoulder mountains of debt and live in constant fear. He had sold his life to a research institute, turning his own body into a lab rat for experimental drugs, just to buy his mother's life. So wonder the iron stomach that once let him drink 1,000 glasses without getting drunk could now be stopped so easily by a single glass of strong liquor his stomach had already been eroded beyond saving. All the anger, pride, and long-held resentment inside me shattered into pieces. Tears poured down my cheeks, splashing onto the yellowed medical records. I hugged the small metal box tightly and broke into loud, ugly sobs like a child. Saihan, you idiot. You're the biggest fool in the entire world. Who gave you the right to make decisions for me? Who let you carry every ounce of pain alone and shove me away like that? As my sobs choked the air from my lungs, a crisp click sounded from the office door. The door was shoved open. Gu Saihan strode in with long steps, still holding a stack of meeting documents, turning his head to speak to the assistant trailing behind him. Rito, this quarter's revenue report. The Asia market analysis data. His calm, authoritative voice cut off mid-sentence. His footsteps halted in the middle of the room. His gaze shot straight to the corner, where I sat collapsed on the carpet. Scattered around me were debt notices, medical records, and the clinical trial contract, soaked in tears. In my hands I still clutched the cheap silver ring from years ago. The entire office froze solid, the silence grew so thick it felt suffocating. The stack of documents slipped from Gu Saihan's fingers and thudded to the floor. Every layer of the cold, oppressive, arrogant mask the new CIO usually wore cracked and shattered completely. His face, drained of all color, turning deathly pale. Those deep eyes that always cut like blades now burned with raw panic. Fear and vulnerability, the deepest, most shameful secret of his life, had just been ripped open by my own hands. The air in the office thickened until it felt as if one heavy breath could shatter the fragile tension. Gu Saihan stood rooted for several seconds, eyes bloodshot and wide with utter panic. Then, as if snapping out of a nightmare, he lunged forward with desperate strides. Gone was the calm, commanding presence of the powerful CIO. In that moment Gu Saihan looked as flustered and clumsy as a thief caught red-handed. He dropped to one knee on the thick wool carpet, large hands frantically scooping up the debt notices and yellowed medical files scattered across the floor. His movements were rough yet trembling uncontrollably. Don't look at this garbage. Give it to me. His voice was hoarse as he snatched the tear-stained clinical trial contract from my hands. He tried to pull the usual cold, cruel mask back into place. But the cracks in his eyes had already betrayed everything. Just some old papers from who knows when. Who gave you permission to rummage through my personal things? I refused to let go, gripping the corner of the contract tightly as I lifted my tear-blurred eyes to stare straight at his ashen face. Search. Old papers, I choked out, voice breaking with pain. Gu Saihan, you call your own life garbage. You call turning your body into a lab rat for a drug that causes massive stomach bleeding nothing. That's the reason, isn't it? Your stomach has already been destroyed beyond repair. Shut up, Gu Saihan growled, yanking the paper from my grasp and hurling it into the cardboard box. He shot to his feet, turning his back to me. His chest heaved violently. The familiar cold, woody fragrance drifted from him. But this time it carried no pressure, only bone-deep loneliness and sorrow. It was 3 years ago, Yechi. Gu Saihan drew a deep breath, forcing his voice back to cold detachment. My family went bankrupt, debt collectors were after us, my mother was dying in her hospital bed. I really had no way out. But everything's been resolved now. I've reached a position countless people would kill for. You don't need to look at me with those pitying eyes. The man I am today doesn't need anyone's pity, especially not yours. Finished speaking. He turned to leave, as if trying to flee the truth that had been exposed. Saihan, you stay right there. I screamed, using every ounce of strength. I pushed off the floor, staggered upright, and lunged forward, grabbing the hem of his dress shirt. I yanked hard, forcing him to turn and face me. Tears streamed down my face as I pounded my fists against his solid chest, weak, powerless blows. You bastard. You're the biggest idiot in the world. Who gave you the right to decide everything for me? Who let you shoulder all the pain alone and push me away with that pathetic excuse? Sobbed and cursed at the same time. Did you think I was the kind of woman who chases wealth and abandons the poor? Did you think I couldn't share half a pack of instant noodles with you? Or run from debt collectors at your side? Why did you take away my right to stand with you through thick and thin? Why did you let me live hating you for 3 whole years? Zhu Saihan stood motionless, letting my feeble punches land against his chest. His eyes were bloodshot, veins standing out in raw pain. His hands clenched into white-knuckled fists at his sides, trembling. "'Cause I couldn't bear it," he suddenly roared. His hands shot out, gripping my shoulders hard enough to bruise. The last icy wall around the powerful CIO finally collapsed. Zisehan looked at me with eyes full of despair and desperate love that stole the breath from my lungs. How could I be selfish enough to drag you into that muddy swamp? Back then I had no money, no future, not even the guarantee I'd be alive the next day. When I saw you standing in the rain holding that cheap ring and smiling so brightly, it felt like someone had ripped my heart out and crushed it. I'd rather you hated me to the bone. I'd rather you cursed me as a worthless scumbag than watch you live in poverty and fear beside a useless man like me. Do you understand, Chi-Chi? Hearing that familiar Yechi slip from his lips, my heart completely melted. All the anger I had carried for so long evaporated, leaving only a tidal wave of aching tenderness. I let out a broken sob and threw my arms around his neck, hugging him with all my strength. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, greedily breathing in the cold, woody scent mixed with the warmth I had missed like crazy for 3 years. Zhu Saihan's tall body stiffened for a split second. Then, his powerful arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him so tightly it felt like he wanted to fuse me into his bones. He lowered his head, burying his face in my hair. His hot breath brushed my ear, carrying choked, suppressed sobs. "I'm sorry, Chi-Chi, I'm so sorry." Or, I could say another word. He lifted my chin and crushed his lips to mine in a fierce kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was violent possession, desperate remorse, and the wildfire of jealousy he had barely contained for days. He kissed me hungrily, biting and sucking my lips until the salty taste of tears mixed with blood. I didn't resist. Instead, I rose on my toes, arms tightening around his neck, clumsily kissing him back. My response was like throwing fuel on a powder keg. Gu Saihan growled low in his throat. The one arm locked around my waist, while the other tangled in my hair, pushing me backward until my back hit the cold reinforced glass. When I saw you linking arms with him at the banquet, when I heard him proudly announce 3 years of love and plans to buy a house and marry you, do you know how close I came to losing my mind? Zisehan broke the kiss just enough to breathe, forehead pressed to mine, eyes burning into me, as if he wanted to set the world on fire. I wanted to strangle him right there. I wanted to lock you in a golden cage and hide you so no other man on earth could ever look at you again. Yechi, you're mine. You were mine 3 years ago, you're mine now, and you'll only ever be mine for the rest of your life. His domineering, almost childish possessiveness turned my heart to liquid. I reached up and gently stroked his sharper, thinner face, smiling through my tears. You big idiot. Then, you and I were only pretending. A female colleague was harassing him, so he asked me to play the fake girlfriend. We're just friends, nothing more. Zhu Saihan's hand froze mid-stroke. His eyes widened in stunned silence for several seconds, while he processed my words. Pretending. His voice shot up an octave. Then why did you throw yourself in front of him when I tried to make him drink? Why did you defend him and curse me out? Because I thought you were holding a grudge and using your power to bully my best friend. The doctor said Chen Yu's stomach is weak and he can't drink. My explanation never finished. Zhu Saihan swallowed the rest with a second kiss hotter, deeper, and sweeter than the first. This time there was no despair, only honeyed relief and overwhelming joy, blooming inside my chest. After all the tearing apart and self-inflicted pain, the final wall between us had completely crumbled. That night in the penthouse on the top floor of Beijing, every misunderstanding and 3 years of resentment dissolved in tight embraces and the most honest warmth we had ever shared. The next morning, warm sunlight danced across the snow-white goose-down blanket through the floor to ceiling windows. Stirred lazily, feeling a strong arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me snug against a solid, warm chest. The faint woody cedar scent brought an indescribable sense of peace. I cracked my eyes open to see Gu Saihan's sleeping face perfect, and without its usual cold pressure. Z looked gentle and clingy like a big dog, face tucked into the crook of my neck, arms refusing to let go. Just as I reached out to touch his brows, a shrill phone ring shattered the quiet. Zone on the nightstand vibrated violently. I startled and tried to grab it so I wouldn't wake him. Before I could move, Gu Sihan frowned and opened his eyes. His gaze flicked to the glowing screen. The name Chen Yu flashed brightly. His brows knitted instantly, a flash of superior jealousy crossing his eyes. Without giving me time to stop him, the powerful new CIO reached out with his long arm, snatched my phone, answered it, and put it on speaker. Hello. Su Yechi, where the hell did you disappear to all night? You didn't even come home. Then, Yu's booming, panicked voice exploded from the speaker, shattering the intimate morning quiet. I'm standing outside your door knocking until my knuckles are raw. You're not backing out of pretending to be my girlfriend, are you? Lina from my department started her nonsense again this morning. If you don't show up, I'm dead. I panicked and tried to wriggle free from Gu Saihan's arms to snatch the phone back. My strength was no match for a man who had once hauled cargo as a part-timer. He simply tightened one arm around my waist, keeping me obediently pinned against his chest. Gu Saihan lazily curled his lips, the corner of his mouth lifting into an extremely dangerous smile. Z cleared his throat and spoke slowly, each word carrying absolute authority. Z's not backing out. My wife was just too tired from last night and is still sleeping. He paused, voice turning ice cold. As for you, Deputy Director Chen, do you have any further objections to your transfer order to Africa? The other end of the line went deathly silent for a full 10 seconds. I could practically picture Chen Yu turning to stone outside my door, mouth hanging open wide enough to fit an egg. Be boss Gu. Chen Yu's voice trembled, stuttering like he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Say, boss, you're holding Yechi's phone, and you just called her your wife. Don't tell me you're the dirt poor ex-boyfriend from back then. It's me, Gu Sihan admitted calmly, his long fingers idly twirling a lock of my hair. I already had my secretary cancel your transfer order last night. You don't need to worry about the 5 million yuan compensation either. But in return, from now on keep a safe distance from my wife. If you ever borrow her to play fake girlfriend again, I won't send you to Africa. I'll ship you straight to a deserted island to live with the monkeys. Oh my god, Chen Yu let out a blood-curdling shriek, finally processing the bombshell. But, instead of cowering like any normal employee, my shameless best friend's thick skin immediately kicked in. Boss Gu, you used company power to scare me half to death, and then stole my shield right out from under me. How are you going to compensate me for the emotional damage? If you don't treat me to Waju for a whole year, I swear I'll cry and cling to Yechi until she can't shake me off. Gu Sihan burst out laughing. The deep, carefree sound rumbled in his chest and vibrated against me, carrying a strange warmth. It had been 3 years since I'd heard him laugh so freely, without a trace of calculation or guard. Fine. Wagyu for a whole year. Tell my secretary whenever you want to eat and she'll handle the card. Gu Saihan generously sealed the deal, then decisively hung up. He tossed the phone aside, leaned down, and planted a loud kiss on my forehead. Your best friend is pretty entertaining, daring to blackmail the CIO. Looks like keeping him in marketing was a smart decision. I shot him a glare, but the corners of my mouth curved up helplessly. The 1,000-pound weight that had crushed my heart finally lifted. That afternoon I returned to the group headquarters to finish clearing out my personal things from the assistant's desk. Now that every misunderstanding had been cleared, I needed to go back to my own communications company and finish the end-of-month KPIs. I couldn't spend every day locked in his office, watching him sign documents. The moment he stepped out of the elevator into the ground floor lobby carrying a cardboard box, I ran straight into Lina. She had her arm linked with several other female colleagues and deliberately blocked my path, seeing me carrying my own belongings. Her eyes lit up with smug glee. Well, if it isn't Sister Yechi, Deputy Director Chen's soon-to-be wife. Lina smoothed her hair, her voice dripping with acidic mockery loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. Just a few days ago, you were flaunting your lovey-dovey act. Today you're already packing up and sneaking out. I heard your precious brother, you offended the new CIO and got exiled to dig mines in Africa. So sister here realized her boyfriend's finished and hurried to pack up and find a new sugar daddy, huh? Typical gold-digging woman. I stopped walking and stared coldly at her heavily made-up face. I was about to retort when a deep, husky voice, carrying overwhelming kingly pressure, rang out from the VIP elevator doors. What kind of tone are you using to speak to my future wife? The entire lobby fell deathly silent, every head turned at once. Xiu Saihan strode toward us with long steps, wearing a perfectly tailored dark green suit that radiated cold elegance. The usual cruelty in his eyes now carried an extra lethal edge. Employees automatically parted like the sea, bowing respectfully. The expensive cold woody fragrance spread through the air, silencing every whisper. Lina jumped in fright. Her face flipped from arrogance to fawning in an instant. She stumbled back a step. Director Gu, you've misunderstood. This is Deputy Director Chen's girlfriend. She's not even an employee of our company. She sneaked in here on her own, so she is here to submit her resignation for the position of my personal assistant. Gu Saihan cut her off, walking straight to my side. Under the terrified gazes of hundreds of people, he casually took the heavy cardboard box from my hands and passed it to the assistant behind him. Other hand firmly clasped mine. And starting tomorrow, she will officially be your boss's wife. Gu Saihan announced clearly, each word hammering into Lina's ears. Does anyone have a problem with that? Lina froze. Her legs turned to jelly. Her eyes bulged as she stared at our tightly clasped hands. The thick layer of makeup on her face seemed to crack from sheer shock and terror. Director Gu, you must be joking, right? She's clearly Chen Yu's girlfriend, his best friends. Xiu Saihan delivered the finishing blow with icy contempt. And Chen Yu is the man I personally promoted to marketing director this morning. He glanced at Li Na with utter disdain. Which department are you from? Petty loves spreading rumors and destroys internal unity. Last month, you ruined the Southern Partners project plan, correct? His secretary stepped forward respectfully. Yes, sir. Prepare the transfer order. Gu Saihan's lips curled into a cruel verdict. The Africa branch needs a cleaning staff member for the mining workers' dorms. Sign the papers, start packing this afternoon. If you refuse, pay the contract penalty. Without another glance at Li Na's wailing collapse onto the floor, Xiu Saihan took my hand and strode straight out to the Maybach waiting at the entrance, leaving a lobby full of employees, stunned into silent awe and fear. Too satisfying. Too refreshing. The feeling of having the most powerful man in the company at my back, while watching my enemy get crushed, was positively addictive. The car rolled smoothly back to the familiar penthouse. The moment we stepped through the door, Gu Saihan wrapped his arms around me from behind. He rested his chin on my shoulder, greedily breathing in the scent of my hair. See, I've made our relationship public. What reward are you going to give me? His voice was low and husky, carrying a spoiled tone that was the complete opposite of the devilish CIO from earlier. The eye laughed softly, turned in his arms, and pinched his cheek. Don't get cocky. We've only just cleared up the misunderstandings. I still haven't settled the score for forcing me to sign that 3-month sell your body contract. Zihan didn't answer. He took half a step back, his expression suddenly turning extremely serious and tender. His large hand reached into his suit pocket and slowly pulled out a deep red velvet box. My heart skipped a beat. Saihan opened the box. Inside were 2 rings. One was an exquisite, sparkling diamond ring worth a fortune. The other was the cheap, chipped silver men's ring from the old metal box yesterday. He looked straight into my eyes and slowly dropped to one knee on the carpet. The man who could summon wind and rain in the business world, the one who made countless partners tremble, now knelt before me with absolute reverence. 3 years ago, I cowardly pushed you away because I was powerless and had nothing. I couldn't protect you, so I didn't deserve to wear the couple ring you gave me. Saihan's voice caught, eyes glistening with moisture. For the past 3 years I fought my way to the top, stepping over thorns and blades, just so today I could kneel before you openly and give you the best this world has to offer. He took the diamond ring from the box and carefully lifted my trembling left hand. This diamond ring is my compensation for the 3 years of youth you spent crying because of me. He slipped the silver ring onto his own ring finger, smiling radiantly. And this silver ring is my reminder that I will never let go of your hand again for the rest of my life. Yechi, will you marry me? Tears poured down my face, but my smile was brighter than the sun. All the pain, resentment, and tearing apart of the past 3 years vanished in this single moment. I nodded fiercely, letting him slide the cold diamond ring warm, with blazing love onto my ring finger. Saihan stood and pulled me into a crushing embrace, kissing me deeply, sweetly, and forever. Is like a circle. Some people may travel a long, winding path through storms and cruel misunderstandings. Yet in the end, they always find their way back to each other. Because from the very first second, fate had already decided they were meant to belong to one another.